you comfortable with talking about your faith at all?
I have so many church stories. I was one of those kids who had to go to church for the entire day on Sunday.
How bad is it, and what should we be doing about it economically?
Everything has been accelerated. The worst thing we could possibly do is to sit and reminisce about the good old days. They're gone.
To young girls who are aspiring to do something amazing with their life, what would you say to them?
Your confidence will only be strengthened by your knowledge.
I got the debt, I got the degree, I'm sleeping on my mother's couch, I can't find a job. What do they need to do? Everybody, I am so excited. A very unique opportunity. The lady that I'm going to get to talk to today, and you're going to get to talk to and listen to and learn from, is an icon in her own rights. A trendsetter, a glass ceiling breaker, has been the chairman of DreamWorks, is now running a company called Ariel, a Black-owned financial institution with loads of advice. So all of you who have debt, college bills, trying to recreate your business, trying to figure out the stock market, wondering if you got anything left in the 401k or not, listen up real close. She has got all kinds of information. Maybe we can get some stock tips too. You're going to love her. Talking about Mellody Hobson. I'm so glad to have you here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
You have been so many things. If I read your whole resume, it would take up the whole time we're talking today. The master of recreating yourself. I know you've been on the board at Princeton. I know you went to school there. I know you've done a lot of amazing work there. And I just found out that you grew up around some Pentecostal church mothers and tambourines and things like. I would have never thought that. What an amazing arc of life. What does that look like to you?
Well, I have to tell you, I tell people all the time, my life is a miracle. I mean, truly a miracle. I wake up every day with so much gratitude for the opportunity that I've been given. It is never lost on me on any day. I grew up in Chicago, the youngest of 6 kids to a single mom. My mom was Pentecostal. She went to the Monument of Faith Church, and I grew up with, you know, church ladies with the usher uniform, the nurse's usher uniform, the white sheets, the Holy Ghost,
Yes.
the white Bible on the coffee table.
Yes.
All of those things were our life. The prayer cloth that was sewn into or pinned into our clothes every day to protect us. The oil that my mother would bless us with. But that was a way of life for us. And it was also a life of a lot of struggle. She was a single person trying to raise a family, a lot of kids, obviously, a lot of ups and downs. There were times we got evicted or our car repossessed, lights turned off, gas turned off, all of those things. My fascination with money came from the financial insecurity that we had as a family. It really, really was dismaying a lot of times for me. And it really led me to pursue this career that I have, because I wanted to be in a situation where I understood money, that I could master it, because I thought if I understand it, I will know how to make it. I'll know how to keep it. I'll know how not to lose it. I'll know how to give it away. All of that I yearned for, believe it or not, even as a child. And I'll end by saying I had a mother who was unbelievable. She was so supportive of me. She was so encouraging. She was also incredibly realistic and direct about everything, about the struggles that I would have in life. No excuses to my success as far as she was concerned, none, no matter what I was up against. But I had a mother who made financial decisions that just didn't make sense to me. So I had the mother who bought the Easter dresses instead of paying the light bill.
Right.
And that was just always it just really was a head scratcher, because she thought that was more important. I don't say that in a way to be judgmental or disparaging, but it was all what sort of led me to this life that I had and that I have today.
I often say it's not always what we're running to, it's what we're running from that gives us the velocity to keep moving. We all have those horror stories and nightmares of different types and kinds, and you can either use it as an excuse to enable your dysfunction, or you can use it as fuel to drive you into your accomplishments. And congratulations on being such a role model, because I think the hardest thing to get our community to believe that if you start out like that, that you can actually get out. You can really escape. You can really be something different, and you can be the CEO of you and control your destiny. It's not a curse. It's not a life sentence. And every time I see somebody like you, it reminds me, you give me evidence to show to them, say, see, she did it. And they can do it too. And to inspire other, we normally say other young girls and young Black girls, but also the boys need a lot of inspiration too, that it can be done. When you were at DreamWorks, and you were chairman, were you not, at DreamWorks?
Yes, I was chair of the Board of DreamWorks Animation. And we sold the company to Comcast a few years ago, but yes, I was the chair, which was a phenomenal experience, phenomenal. And that's where I worked with Jeffrey Katzenberg and David Geffen and Steven Spielberg, and just an enormous number of super, super talented people. Now I was chair while still being at Ariel and being president of Ariel. Oh,
you were doing both at the same time.
I've been at Ariel, this is my 29th year. I've had one job since I graduated from Princeton, the same work phone number, the only person in my graduating class of 1,100 people who's worked at the same place since I graduated from college.
That's amazing. So your work ethic has to be pretty intense.
I'm laughing because I'm pretty much known for being, just, not really rational about work. Some of that came from my mom. When I was growing up, my mom said, if you slept past 6 a.m., the world was passing you by. Mm-hmm. No matter what, she didn't let us sleep past 6 on a Saturday in the summer. She thought that it was just not appropriate. Mm-hmm. And so I've always been a super, super early riser. And notwithstanding the pandemic, normally I wake up at about 4. Lately, I've been waking up at 5. Mm-hmm. And I just always believe that your success or results are a direct result of the work you put into it. And so when I tell people, you might be smarter than me, you can't outwork me. You just can't. Yeah. And that's a competitive advantage.
I'm so glad you said that, because those early habits have a lot to do with the trajectory of our success, and that tenacity to work harder, to go longer. And because we have an era now that suggests that everything is handed to you by osmosis, it's very important to hear that success and accomplishments, and even survival for that matter, takes a lot of work and focus. It's not just prayer and prayer closet oil. You really do have to put some works to your faith and really go hard after what you're trying to get. Let me drain you all I can. I've got so many things. I think that I went to an event at Martha's Vineyard. I think you might have been there too. There, every year they gather at Martha's Vineyard and have all the lofty conversations about the trajectory of the economy of all the different industries. And I was amazed. I'd never been there before. I thought, where have I been? And I'm sitting there in amazement at a Black Economic Forum as they're talking about over the next 20 years, this is before COVID-19, that African Americans between the next 10 and 20 years were going to be 20% unemployment just because of technology coming along and our ineptitude for STEM programs and STEAM programs. And though we had a STEAM program before of sorts, I went back home and I escalated everything in that direction to lower those numbers. Now that COVID-19 has happened, this is what I suspect, and I'm not the expert, but I suspect that technology has escalated more rapidly than we had projected in the trends, because the only way to do business was through technology. So what we put off for 10 or 20 years ago, I think we're sitting on top of it now. I don't know how bad it is. How bad is it, and what should we be doing about it economically?
So I'm going to take the counter argument and say, instead of it being bad, what is the opportunity? Okay. I think the opportunity is very great for us. And I think you're exactly right. And this is what I've been saying to our team. Everything has been accelerated. Everything that was happening now is happening at warp speed because of COVID-19. So for example, we knew Amazon was winning.
Right.
Now they're just wiping the floor with some of the retailers that are out there.
Right.
We have seen so many things in terms of how the world is changing and evolving. It's almost like it got a shot in the arm.
Right.
But the thing is to not be discouraged. This is true of many revolutions that we've had. The Industrial Revolution, these moments happen. So we've been in this technological revolution basically for the last almost 30 years, 25 years. And in this revolution, new opportunities present themselves and other things go away. And the way that I try to assuage some of the fears that are out there is to say, if you were in the middle of the 1800s, you couldn't have imagined a job like, I'm just making this up, a massage therapist, a manicurist.
Right.
Just think of some of those things that you would just say, what is that? Because there were all sorts of developments in the ways that the world changed that created new opportunities. That will happen for the world and for our community. Now, it still is incumbent upon us to be trained and to be open-minded to those opportunities as they exist. The worst thing we could possibly do is to sit and reminisce about the good old days. They're gone. Now we have to look forward and be optimistic and lean into the changes that are coming. And I know there are plenty of people who will be listening saying that's easier said than done, Mellody, or maybe easy for you. I'm not saying in my own industry. I think every single business, every industry, from being pastor to a church, to running an investment firm, to running a retail store, a dry cleaner, a restaurant, everything got harder. Yeah. Everything.
Yes.
And it wasn't that, that certain things were easier and some things were harder. Everything got disrupted. And it's incumbent upon us to just embrace that disruption.
That's a very good way to look at it. And it's a very important way to look at it. What do you look for indicators of where the trends are taking? Where do you look for tips to understand how to get ahead of the game?
Well, certainly you can look at what is going on just in industries. So what is changing in big industries? And you look at things like job growth. Where's job growth been? Where isn't it? Now, that could be a little misleading because certain industries like tech, you don't have hundreds of thousands of people working at some of these big tech companies like you did for AT&T or for Ford Motor Company or things like that. So that can be a little bit of a misnomer. But when you look at where are newly minted college graduates going to work, where newly minted graduates of business schools, of PhD programs, et cetera, going to work, that'll give you some indications of what industries are changing. You also look at the areas where there are unfilled opportunities. So this is an interesting thing. Like one of the places where they need skilled workers and there's underemployment, believe it or not, is in the trucking business. Mm-hmm. Now you say to yourself, okay, I get that. So many more packages are being moved around the world in the country because of online shipping. So that makes total sense. Yeah. You ask yourself, cause and effect. Mm-hmm. So if you see a lot of Amazon sales, what else gets affected? Mm-hmm. Shipping, what else gets affected? Distribution centers. Mm-hmm. There are all sorts of things where you start with one and then you look for the ripple. And that'll give you a sense of some changes. Like right now, I'm really worried about the fact that because we've been working from home, that even in white collar jobs, people are going to say, we just have too many people. Mm-hmm. And if you want to realize who's essential and not essential, be on a Zoom call. You quickly realize who's adding value and who you forget is even there.
Yes.
And so I would tell everyone right now, if you want your job, come with ideas, come with work that shows you're truly engaged, because those people who are drifting into the woodwork, people are going to come back and say, I just don't need this many people.
Right.
The other change we're probably going to see is just how much real estate companies have. Mm-hmm. If some of these companies do allow people to work from home, they're going to have smaller office footprints. Mm-hmm. So that will affect the real estate business. So what is the next secondary effect to that? That's all the shops, the restaurants in those communities that say, well, maybe we won't have as many workers coming in every day, going down to that restaurant for lunch or what have you. So just thinking all of that through.
That's very, 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 very good stuff. When you look at that, one of the things that I keep hearing everybody talk about, and particularly in my community, they don't watch the stock market. They do not watch the stock market. They don't understand the stock market. They don't know what it is, but they do watch their 401ks, okay? And they do know their 401ks are taking a hit. And there's not a day that goes by I don't get a parishioner or somebody inboxing me saying, trying to get a tip. Should I pull back? Should I pull my money out? Should I stay in? Should I reinvest in certain areas? What are your thoughts about 401ks?
So there's 401ks are the gateway to investing for the Black community. We've done a lot of work around this at Ariel. Our community is underinvested when it comes to stocks specifically, and our exposure to the stock market, which has outperformed all other investments since 1926. So that is a fact. The other fact that is super important for people to understand, there is no 25-year period in stock market history where the market has lost money. Not one, zero. So you could look day by day, week by week, month by month, go out 25 years. You cannot find that math where it's negative. That's very, very important because it anchors people to understand you have to take a long-term view. And the one thing that exists for most people when it comes to retirement money is they're investing for the long term. They're investing for a type of lifestyle when they're older. Mm-hmm. Now, the closer you get to that retirement age, you may want to pull back on your exposure to some of the stock market and the risk that might be there, which is shorter term risk. Mm-hmm. Over the long term, the risk gets diminished with time. Mm-hmm. The great thing about a 401k plan is that every 2 weeks you're putting money in, $20, $50, $100. And sometimes the stock market is really high, which means you buy fewer shares of that mutual fund. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the stock market is low, like we saw in early March. You buy more shares, and over the long term, you average a better price. Mm-hmm. So the best thing you could do is to keep investing. You keep investing through the highs and the lows, and it averages itself out. You don't try to time this market because no one can do that. No one. There's data that shows if you miss the 20 best days in the stock market since the financial crisis, your return would have been cut in half. No one knew when those 20 best days were. Right. So again, you want to take the long-term view. You want to stay patient. And the one thing you don't want to do is sell out or stop in this environment. You sell out, the only thing you do is lock in losses. There's a very famous investor who started the Vanguard Group. His name was Jack Bogle. He died not too long ago. And he used to say in these really rough markets, don't do something, stand there. And that's something that I think is very important. You need to stand solid during these periods. Last point, such a long answer, I'm sorry.
No, I love it.
If you had looked at just in the middle, early March, the stock market fell 30% in 22 days. The fastest bear market, bear meaning bad. Mm-hmm. Why is it named bull and bear? Supposedly how they kill their prey. Bears bear down on their prey. Bulls take their horns and pull up. Bull, the stock market going up. Bear, the stock market going down. The fastest bear market in stock market history. And then we've seen this equally fast recovery. No one would have expected that. So you trying to think you're smart enough to time it, me trying to think I'm smart enough to time it, just is not possible.
Wow, that is so helpful. How do we get our people involved in investments outside of 401ks?
Well, I love that question because usually the 401k plan becomes the anchor. The good thing about it is you're investing regularly. It's pre-tax dollars, so you get that tax savings on all the money that you put in. The other thing that's really great about a 401k plan, now some companies may have pulled back during the pandemic, but usually you get some kind of company match and it's free money. Every time I tell people, if you walk away from that free money, you're walking away from a return. So if you get 50 cents on the dollar, that's a 50% return right off the bat. Wow. The stock market doesn't do that over the long term. No. So that free money is great. Right. Hopefully that gets your toe in the water. You start to understand what mutual funds are, which is generally what's in the accounts that are in a 401k plan, or a basket of stocks or a basket of bonds together. You're not putting all your eggs in one basket by picking one thing. And then that gives you some confidence to maybe reach out to a financial advisor. And I say a financial advisor because I believe in getting help if you don't know something.
Mm-hmm.
We're underinvested because we don't learn about the stock market in school in America. Today, you can take woodshop or auto and not a class on investing in high school, which always leads me to ask people who whittles, who's cleaning their own carburetor, right? No one. But you can't take this basic course in investing. So then going and getting help makes a ton of sense. And how do you find that help? You ask. If you needed a pediatrician for your child, you would not you wouldn't Google it. You would ask a bunch of families, who's a good doctor? Well, the same thing with finding a financial advisor. And you want to find a financial advisor who will teach you, because an informed customer is the best customer. So you're not blind. If you went to the doctor and the doctor said your child broke their tibia in 3 places, you would say, what does that mean? Because that's life and death for your kid.
Mm-hmm.
And the doctor would say he broke his leg.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the same thing when you go to a financial advisor. If they're speaking in language that you don't understand, like just now when I said bear market without explaining it and you don't know what that means, you need it explained. And if they can't explain it to you, move on.
Right. That's good. That's so good. In my world, I'd say, man, this past month, 3.7 million kids graduated from high school and or college into a world that they did not study for, prepare for, or train for. What would you say to those students who are picking out degrees, colleges, and or completed colleges and are trying to figure out where they need to go industry-wise in jobs?
So there's 2 different answers for the 18-year-old versus the 22-year-old who's left college.
Okay.
For the 18-year-old, I can tell you right now, there's a direct correlation between the income you're going to earn in your lifetime and how much education you have. Mm-hmm. It is direct. People often fear student loans, but I can tell you it's the one kind of debt that pays for itself over time. Mm-hmm. That piece of paper is actually worth something, that diploma. So you make more money if you graduate from high school than if you didn't. You make more money if you graduated from college than if you graduate from high school. You make more money if you graduate from graduate school than if you graduated from college. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can go all the way down the list. And so just letting you know the direct correlation. So I would encourage as many people as possible who are leaving high school to try to get some more education. It could be a 2-year degree from a community college, a 4-year degree, however much more education you can get. But don't take out the debt and not get the degree. That is the kiss of death. Mm-hmm. So now you got all this debt and you don't get that incremental income that comes from the degree. So once you go in, you must stick with it, or else you will be saddled in a bad situation.
I run into all kinds of young people who are saying, I got the degree, I got the debt, I got the degree, I'm sleeping on my mother's couch, I can't find a job. What do they need to do?
Okay, so now that's different if you got the degree and graduated from college. And I want to be the first to recognize this is one of the most unusual times in U.S. history. We've got record numbers in terms of unemployment. They will likely exceed the numbers that we saw during the Great Depression. But this has been we've actually intentionally closed down the world economically. I had a friend who told me we put our economy into a medically induced coma. Mm-hmm. We were in a very robust economy and we stopped it. Very different than the Great Depression where things eroded. Very different than the financial crisis where our banking system got sick and our housing market got sick. Very, very, very different scenario. Because of that, I expect us to come out of it, not in a V. It won't be that we just propel out, but we should come out of it better because the underlying structure of the economy was stronger when we went into it than those other times that we had significant financial trouble in the country or in the world. So because of that, what you want to think about if you graduated, maybe you have to go home. That is more than possible. And you have to live in the basement or on the couch or go back to your old room with your trophies from high school in it to get through this period. So what I've told young people is make a date in your mind, a date. I don't care what date it is, what year it is, a date certain where you say, I will not be supported by my parents. Mm-hmm. You decide when it's going to be. And maybe the only thing you get from them is potentially your health care if they're able to provide something like that for you. And then you think about what you like to do. People always say, what industry, what this, what that. you can't be successful if you don't like the job.
Right.
I mean, there is actually some truth to that. Bishop, you do something that you love and it shows. I do something that it loves and it shows, and it comes out in results. So it's not just about this formulaic, this is where there's an opportunity, go do it. Because if you don't like it, you will not be successful.
Right.
So you have to know what some of your own skills are and then line that up with opportunities that are out there. Now, there are big opportunities like nursing shortage in America, teacher shortage in America. I already talked about trucking for now, although I think that's going to change with driverless vehicles. We know about the technology space, and while you're home, could you go take an online computer course? Mm-hmm. While you're home, could you take an online course in coding? Mm-hmm. Do you speak another language that would serve you very well? Mm-hmm. I mean, there are a lot of things that you could do. You know, I think about all the bilingual Latinx community in our country that could help translate, you know, online and things like that. Finding ways to use whatever skills you have to serve you during this opportunity and line it up with what you like to do. Are you a strong writer where you could, you know, help someone write freelance from home? And right. If you can't do those things, the last thing I will say, I just gave this commencement speech on iHeartRadio. Can you volunteer your time? Because that creates skills for you as well. Yeah. You know, can you go volunteer at your church? Go volunteer helping get out the vote. That you can put on a resume. You were doing something when the world was locked down. And that gets the attention of employers.
Yeah, those are really, really great things. One thing I want to mention too, sometimes you can have the right degree and be in the wrong location.
That's true.
You may need to move to another area. You may have a degree in creative arts and you live in Omaha. You know,
that is absolutely true.
You know, finding the right location may mean the disruption of leaving home in order to be able to do it. What were the choices that caused your own career to soar? The choices.
You know, when I was in my 20s, my mother, when I first graduated from college, you know, I said she didn't go to college, had a high school diploma, got married when she was 18 years old. I came much, much later in life. But my mother said to me, make yourself indispensable. She said, whatever job you take, make it that they need you so much they would never fire you. Mm-hmm. And so the choice that I made was I made a conscious choice to do all the work no one else wanted to do. Mm-hmm. So when it was like the assignment that like people recoiled from, like, I don't want to do that assignment, I was like, I'll take it. I'll take it. And I meant it. I meant it with enthusiasm. I told this story, which is one of my favorite stories. Our firm was started by my co-CEO, John Rogers, when he was 24 years old. First minority-owned investment firm ever started in the nation. And John was given stocks every birthday and every Christmas, starting when he was 12 years old, by his father, who was a child of the Depression, first class of Tuskegee Airmen as well. Wow. And John, instead of toys, no toys. And John, the stock market became a childhood hobby that became an obsession that became our company. So John had a daughter. She was a little girl. I'm working at Ariel. And he comes in and he says, and I used to write his correspondence for him. Now I've gone to Princeton, graduated, and I'm doing his correspondence happily. So he says to me one day, my daughter had a birthday sleepover. And she's like, no one writes notes like you, Mellody. Will you write a thank you note to the parents? So I said, no problem. I said, I need to speak to Victoria. Victoria was only like 6 years old, 7 years old, maybe 8. So he says, why do you need to speak to Victoria? I said, I need to know how the party was. Mm-hmm. So he gets his daughter on the phone. I said, how was the cake? What games did you play? I'm going through all this stuff. And he's like, I said, I want this family to get the best thank you note they've ever gotten. Mm-hmm. And when they receive it, they're going to say, wow, that John and Desiree Rogers are unbelievable. Wow. And that's literally the enthusiasm with which the assignments that no one wanted that I took on. And nothing was ever too small, too low. It wasn't, I went to Princeton, I'm not doing a child's birthday thank you note. It was thank you for the opportunity.
Wow, that's incredible. It says something to do. You know, I think one of the greatest things you can learn is to learn how a person thinks. And to learn how you think about a task has a lot to do with determining where you end up. It occurred to me that there are so many people that are listening at us right now who didn't even know that there were minority firms like Ariel that existed. and would find that very appealing to tie into. Tell us a little bit about Ariel.
So we've been in business. We started in 1983. We're 37 years old, and we are an investment firm. So we invest for big institutions like the state of New York or corporations, big corporations. And then we also invest for individuals through our mutual fund. So anyone with $1,000 or the ability to give us $50 a month gets the exact same thing that Coca-Cola would get from us, as an example, as a client. And we're in 401k plans of big companies, our mutual funds. And then we're also available for 529 plans, or for people who are saving for kids' college accounts and things like that. So we do exactly what the big investment firms do. We do it from Chicago. We have an office in New York. We have someone in Australia. We're opening an office soon in San Francisco. And we've been doing this for a long, long time. And we invest in stocks, and they're also known as equities. Mm-hmm. So shares of public companies is what we buy. And in the US, we buy stocks of small and medium-sized companies. So an example of a company that we would own in the US, one that actually just got sold, that was a medium-sized company that we own. We used to own Tiffany's. Mm. We bought it 3 different times. We like to buy these companies when they're out of favor and they're misunderstood, ignored, underfollowed. No one cares about them. When did we first buy Tiffany's? After 9/11. 9/11, no one was shopping. You could have bowled through any mall in America. And we said, there's this premier brand, this blue box where the color of the blue is patented, where the company, in the history of the company, has never had a sale, where if they get the jewelry design wrong, they melt it down and start over, where they have this appreciating inventory in terms of the gold and silver that is in their vaults. And we said, this is a great opportunity. So we bought the company, we made a lot of money, we sold it, and we bought it a couple more times. And most recently, it was just purchased, the whole company, by LVMH, the company that is the parent company for Louis Vuitton. So that was a good win for us.
Yes.
Right now, we're buying companies out of favor like Viacom CBS, where media stocks have really been trounced, and we see an opportunity there. So we buy these small and medium-sized companies that have brands or franchises that are well-known. Oftentimes they're companies that once you get the customer, they come back again and again. And then we also do the exact same thing, but with companies of all sizes that are headquartered around the world. So we have international and global portfolios as well. And there we own things like Michelin, the tire company. Yes. And the great thing about tires, everyone thinks it's about how many cars are being sold. No, it's how many miles are being driven. The number of miles you drive dictates you replacing your tires. The older the car, the more likely they are to replace the tires.
Wow, that's incredible. When one of the things that you made very clear that I've been trying to impress upon the hearts of my constituency is when everybody's running away, that's when smart people run in.
So very famous line from the great John Templeton, who was knighted by Queen Elizabeth, Sir John Templeton, one of the greatest investors of all time, who said, you want to buy at the point of maximum pessimism. You want to sell at the point of maximum optimism. Warren Buffett, who is alive and the greatest investor of all time, says you want to be greedy when others are fearful, and fearful when others are greedy. So when things are horrible, that's when we get excited about stocks. And when things are really, really great, I heard someone say, when people start singing everything's coming up roses, I think of thorns. So when the markets start to feel really rich, that's when we're going to be less excited because there's less opportunity for us to make money.
Wow, that's incredible. What advice would you give to, let's change just a little bit and talk about being a woman. And you came into this at a time that it was taboo for women to be in positions of such power. And now it's kind of common to see women wielding influence and power. It's still not as common as it ought to be, but more common than we've ever seen it before. To young girls who are aspiring to do something amazing with their life, or shatter a ceiling, to break into an area where it has been taboo, what would you say to them?
So I would say that, first of all, you must be resolute about your dreams and your ambition. do not feel bad about being ambitious. You know, sometimes they make us as women feel bad that we're ambitious. I'm ambitious. I always have been. I am not shying away from that. I'm proud of that aspect of my personality. The other thing that I would say to young women who are out there, first of all, it's going to be hard. And that's what my mother told me. That's what Black moms do. They prepare you. They let you know it's not going to be easy. They let you know what you're up against so you're not surprised, and then tell you, and you can still do it. So it's not going to be easy. While we have made some breakthrough and have had some strides in the world in terms of women's leadership, we are still so far away from parity and equity in every way, pay, representation, you name it. But that is not an excuse to a lack of success. We have to keep soldiering on. And I tell people, I had a question that I got recently that was so revealing from a very young woman on an interview that I was doing, and she was in the audience and she asked a question. She said, how do you deal with not feeling like an imposter? And so there's this whole, issue about minorities and women sometimes having this imposter syndrome, like we don't belong. And I said, you can't be an imposter if you know what you're talking about, if you've done the work, if you're studied and trained. I don't feel like an imposter because I've done the work. So, these are the kind of things that I think are very, very important. Your confidence will only be strengthened by your knowledge. And so do the work and fight for what you believe. I do not back down. No, you don't have to be militant with a fist in the air, right, but you can press your case in a way that is still elegant and graceful and undeterred. And when I think about the people who have most affected me in my life that I look to for strength and for wisdom, I never met some of them. I had the ability and the privilege to meet some of them, but I've been mentored by Martin Luther King. I never met him. I've been mentored by people like Gandhi. I never met him. I've been mentored by Mother Teresa, never met her. I did have the opportunity to meet Nelson Mandela, mentored by him and reading all of his books. And then I've had obviously living people who are living legends right now that I've had an opportunity to meet and or observe that I've also learned from, like Oprah, like you, Bishop, like others. And so not having that excuse of proximity or access. I hear so many times, well, I don't know anyone. I don't have anyone to help me. I'm like, read. Yeah. Just read. Yeah. Reading will tell you so much. I used to read biographies only just to learn from people and their lives. Wow. And my greatest wisdoms came from places I never expected, like Vince Lombardi. Really? I could go on and on of people I read about where I'm like, that stuck with me.
Yeah, yeah. When you think about, I'm just thinking about your life. I'm thinking about, gosh, she's a mother, she's a wife, she's running a corporation, she's speaking everywhere. I ran into you getting ready to do an interview in New York. You're always doing stuff all the time. You were at Oprah's event. You're all across the country, all across the globe. And yet you're holding it all down. And I've run into women all the time. I started Women Aren't Loose. It ended up filling the Georgia Dome, the World Congress Center, and Phillips Arena. Everything they had in Atlanta was sold out with nothing but women. 300,000 women over 3 days. They're exasperated. They're tired. They're exhausted. They feel stressed. They're under pressure. Now they're shut up in the house. How do you manage all of that and keep your head?
So there's a lot of things that I do. First of all, I ask people how they organize their times and days to learn from them. I have my own tricks how I organize my day. Like, for example, normally I have office hours during my day, which I learned in college. Professors had office hours. So I said, instead of people just coming in all the time, why don't I create a window in which it's just open access? And then that way I can stay focused the rest of the day and not keep being interrupted and looking up. Although we do pride ourselves in the access that the individuals that I work with have to all of us. I also think about the fact that we shortchange ourselves in so many ways. I believe in getting help, having people help me to do my job. Mm-hmm. And people think that that's a sign of weakness, and I don't. And that's both at home and that's at work. And I don't mean that in some way of being extravagant. I sometimes took much, much less and gave it to others so that I could be able to get more done, recognizing that if I could do that and achieve, that would pay for itself over time. Mm-hmm. So we nickel and dime ourselves in some ways sometimes that I think makes it harder for us. And I recognize I have some unique resources. So please don't think I say this in some kind of cavalier way. You know my story now.
Yes.
And so that is really, I'm always very cognizant of all the pulls and the drains that people have on their precious resources. And I had those at various stages of my life as well. The last thing I would say is, I think it's very, very important to take care of yourself in terms of what you can do to feed your soul. And so for me, there are certain like non-negotiables. I have to exercise in the morning. Like I have to. And if I don't have a clear brain, and I don't have the ability to have the level of stamina that I need to do my work. And so while some people think that's being like, a superhero, I actually need it just to sustain myself. Now, other people have different things. I think, sort of strong physical state clears your mind and is very important. And so, but I wake up at the crack of dawn to do that. I don't get to do that at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
And then the last thing I would say that I think is very important is I am very realistic about when I'm out having my own moments of stress and breakdown and that I can't handle things. And, I've had those moments with my husband where I'm like bone tired or taking red eyes or, crisscrossing the country and just like, lambasting myself of why did I agree to do this speech? Why am I doing this? Yeah. And, he always tells me something that I think is profoundly true. He says, Mellody, you have the life that you want. Everyone does. Everyone, except for children. And he said, what do you mean? I mean by that is he said, you could come home at 5 o'clock and just have a different job in life. You choose not to do that. You could, work at Neiman's and sell shoes. He's like, but you don't choose to do that. And so you have to accept the decisions that you've made for yourself. You want it more. And so you didn't do those other things, but you could have done those other things, been home at 5 o'clock or 5:30 and had a different life. So accept the choices that you make. Don't blame them on other people. You have the life that you want. And if this is not the life that you want, change it. Yeah. That's what he always tells me, change it.
Yes. So true. Final question. Are you comfortable with talking about your faith at all?
Sure.
Okay. My
mother was Pentecostal.
Oh, really?
So yes. I have so many church stories. I was one of those kids who had to go to church for the entire day on Sunday.
Right.
Have lunch and dinner there.
Exactly.
The whole day.
That's a small world. It's so
amazing. And she would send me down to the line to get in line for dinner early before the service. I was like 8 years old. Yeah. And she's like, go get in line, with the woman with the cash box and the same chicken dinner and the best biscuits you've ever had in your life.
Exactly.
That was
That's so funny. It's not popular to be a person of faith, not in the world that you live in. We relegate faith to poor people. Successful people, it's a taboo subject to have. Is your faith quarantined for your private life, or how does it inform, integrate, and infiltrate who you are as a person every day?
That's a really good question. It's not something I've ever thought of in that way. It's a really clever use of words with the quarantined. The way that I would describe the faith that I have, so it was born of my mother's faith. I want to be very clear about that. Hers was very outward and aggressive. Mm-hmm. And that wasn't right for me. So I'll just tell you that. Now, totally respect her, respected her point of view, loved her, and understood why it was so important for her. My mother went blind when I was in high school. She was diabetic. She was blind. And my mother would not admit that she was blind. And anytime we would, talk to her about the fact that she was and, this, that, and the other, she was like, God is going to heal me. Till the end, she believed it. And I thought to myself, you know what? If that gets her through, God bless. Mm-hmm. Now, for me, what I would say is mine is much more internal. It's like my own, it's like my own weather vane. It's like my own North Star. Mm-hmm. And mine is around truth, justice, living life the right way, being good to other people, sharing. I really believe in sharing.
I've always felt a pull, a magnet that drew me, that wooed me. I don't think it was always my decisions. It was my inclinations and my instincts, but those instincts wooed me into certain places or certain friendships with certain people. Have you felt that feeling of being drawn by destiny or a purpose or something outside of yourself that pulled you all of your life?
So first of all, I remember an interview that Oprah did with Barbara Walters. And I remember being so blown away by her willingness to say it. And she was like, I knew I was destined for greatness. And I just was like, I remember welling up. I mean, it even like affects me right now. Like to think about her having that kind of clarity about her purpose in life. I was like, what a gift. Yeah. I was so tired. I mean, I remember it like it was yesterday. And what I felt was, I tell people this, I was a child and I knew I was different. Mm-hmm. I say that to people. I was like, how old were you when you knew you were a mutant? I was 5. I knew I was different than these other people. I knew that I came with, there was a level of courage that I had that I didn't always see around me. I was unafraid. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that it was greatness, but it was like, I can survive. I don't know how to describe that to you. Like, you can knock me down and I can survive. I joked with this today. I said, if you told me I couldn't work at Ariel and I had to go sell shoes at Neiman's, I can tell you in a year I'd be the #1 salesperson in the country. Mm-hmm. Like, I know it. And I don't say that in a bragging or in a way of lacking humility. I just know what I'm capable of. Wow. And so it wasn't about destined for greatness. Maybe it was about, I'm like literally getting a little emotional about this. It was sure that I would not be consequential, that would not be inconsequential. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I was like, if you had all this sort of baked into you, what are you going to do with it? You know, when I married George, it was so upsetting to me. All these people would say, are you going to keep working? It was like I'd won the lottery. I was like, do you not know me? Yeah. You think that my purpose is tied to that I would just walk away from my purpose for a man? Right. I have a purpose. All these people put all of this into me. I cannot let them down by just, phoning it in because I'm good. Mm-hmm. No.
Wow. I think what you have done is help somebody who's listening to hone in on that thing, that nebulous, indescript, hard to articulate thing that you know in your knower, that you're bigger than the environment around you and the circumstance around you, and that there's something that you hear the beat of another drum. I've always known that about myself, that I heard the beat of a drum that other people around me, even other clergy, didn't seem to hear, and it was different. And giving yourself permission to dance to the beat of the drum beat that you hear in your soul is what makes life worth living. This has been an amazing interview. I hate to stop.
Thank you so much for having me. As I said before, I'm such a big fan. I'm so honored to be, with you today. Thank you.
Call on you again. I'm going to do this in front of everybody and put you on the spot. You have a way of saying things that are profound and yet within the reach of the hearer. I would love to do something else with you somewhere.
Well, let's do it.
Okay. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Thanks.
Bye-bye. Bye. And if we don't get to hear from people like you, then the people in the streets will take over the narrative.
I'm exhausted with the word broken. The system is not broken, my brothers and sisters. It was built this way.
Are we still here? Are we really still here?
I gave my life to Christ, to reaching a lost and a broken world and to seeing the captive set free.
There's so much research showing that we are designed as humans to be collectivistic.
I do believe that we have an opportunity to change the foundational culture right now. There's no excuse right now.
in the final years of our ministry and in the height of yours, maybe we could still yet change the world.